Hey friends. So this is kind of a piano-centric post, fair warning. And it's something kind of remarkable happened yesterday, which is why this is sort of coming out of me. And it's funny because as I was sitting down to do my post today, I was like, oh, I'm not really sure what I'm going to talk about today. And then a memory from this morning just pinged into my imagination or into my mind. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is definitely the one. Yesterday, I saw this video. It's on a channel called the Chopin Method. And it was basically an anatomical. Well, it was a video about Chopin and his teaching, and particularly some really kind of detailed looking at how Chopin, no surprise, it's funny because I've hit on this myself in my own piano playing and teaching. Chopin thought that each finger has a personality, and he was very conscious of the sound that the sound that each finger makes is slightly different than all the other fingers, and that was something he both in his composition he was aware of, that he was working with that awareness, and also then in how he was teaching students to play music. He had a very specific sense of which fingers were to play which notes, because that was the sound he was looking for. And somewhere sort of towards the middle or the end of this video, that it talks about the hand, and it talks about how the index finger and the thumb are connected at the same metacarpal bone, and the same thing is true of the fourth finger and the pinky finger. They both have connections all the way down here, kind of they come off the same bone in the wrist. And not to mention, there's this weird thing about our fingers, which is that they extend all the way through. And it's making me have to go and look at a diagram of the hand, an actual sort of like, the bones of the hand. Because what happened to me as I started to, I watched this video, maybe, 9 minutes long, and I started practicing, and without even doing this deliberately, I started feeling my fingers extending from here. So in other words, when I usually look at sorry, I have a cut on my fourth finger. I nicked myself with the carrot peeler yesterday. No emergency. I usually think of my fingers starting from this knuckle, and that they drop from this knuckle, which is what they actually do. I mean, that's as far as they can be independently manipulated. We've got the skin starts here, the fingers start here, but that's not really true. They extend all the way back into here, and really, you can feel your fingers moving from the wrist, from all the way back here. So the pinky extends from here. The fourth finger extends from the same little joint to here. The middle finger has its own independent line, which makes it kind of like a good, center point, fixed point of the hand. And then the index finger and the thumb both connect all the way back here. It changed everything. It was like I bought 50% more finger at the store, and all of a sudden I had 50% more tools to work with in terms of generating movement, generating power, pliability, movement of the hand, navigation, the thumb. There's another little kind of tidbit in the video about how the thumb passes, crossing the thumb under during scales, or kind of like scalar type passages. And I was just amazed. I was amazed at what it did to my playing, to have that awareness. And it's like the kind of stereotypical tip of the iceberg. These fingers are just the tip of the iceberg, and there's this whole other part of the hand that's sort of like, I was considering it as a chunk, as a block, and it actually has all this independence, all this movement. When I feel my pinky finger starting here, or my fourth finger, it's just a whole different world. Maybe this is silly, but it was a profound experience yesterday of sitting at the piano and feeling like, because I've just had this sense when I watch true, concert level virtuoso pianists. I've had this sense that there's some kind of power they're getting that I don't have access to. They're accessing something about the movements of the hand that makes things easier than they are for me. In other words, I could tell that I was struggling, and in some ways not even using the right tool for the job in some ways, because it was like, it can't be that hard. It can't be, when I watch someone do it, it can't be as hard as it feels like it is to me. There's got to be a ticket. There's got to be something they know that I don't. Even when I would watch sometimes Madeline's hands on the piano demonstrating, and Madeline, by her own admission, doesn't really practice anymore. So it's not like everything's in great shape when she's playing a piece, but her mechanics, her mechanisms, flawless. And I could tell, I was like, there's something about this that's easier for her than it is for me. And when I started to play yesterday, I was like, oh, it's because she's feeling her fingers without even knowing it. She's feeling her fingers from here. I mean, maybe she does know it, but without even without ever dwelling on it, there's a sense of the fingers extend from the wrist. It's like we have these invisible fingers before our real fingers start. And I was working on a Ravel piece, and it was almost kind of like, it was like a perfect cosmic moment, because I was kind of discovering this about my hand as I'm learning a piece where clearly, sometimes I just get this sense, I'll be playing a composer, I'll be learning a new piece, and whenever I'm learning a piece by a new composer, it's kind of like seeing inside their mind. And there'll be little passages that I learn on piano, and I'll go, oh, it's like I'll recognize their pianistic enthusiasm, or it's like I'll see that they found this shape really cool, or this combination of movements among the hands somehow entertained and delighted them. I had a really powerful experience of this when I first learned Rhapsody in Blue years ago, because it was like I was learning Gershwin's piano vocabulary, and it was drawing on both classical music and a lot of sort of jazz harmony and whatnot, and I was just fascinated by. As I was practicing, I was imagining him playing the piece for the first time and coming up with these shapes and coming up with these passages, and a little bit of that has stuck with me ever since then. In all the other composers I've played, Chopin, my God, you're constantly seeing not just someone's incredible musical compositional spirit, I'm also witnessing his love of the piano, of the instrument, and the way he moved his hands on the keyboard, and what he was feeling when he would play certain passages. And I didn't know this thing about him, thinking that having a really strong sense that each finger has its own personality, but it makes total sense. You know, I talked about this in my course, like the role of the thumb as kind of the commander of the hand, which interestingly Chopin considers the index finger the sort of leader of the hand. So maybe I need to go do a little research on this, but it makes total sense to me that every one of these digits has a personality. But man, discovering the invisible fingers in here that look like a fleshy palm to us, but that are actually extensions that we can that we can manipulate and that have an effect on the ultimate sort of tip of the iceberg part of the finger. Yeah, big day for Robin. So I told you it was a piano-centric post, but I couldn't not share that. Have a wonderful day, folks. So much love. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. I'll see you tomorrow.